All right, we are live again. I'm so far behind this week, you have no idea. Actually, let me get my other thing going here. I would actually not be as far behind as I am, if not for the fact that that thing we looked at yesterday requires a week to get calibrated. So I was going to be reviewing the radon detector today, but I'm not going to be reviewing the radon detector today because I need to let it sit for a week over there recording data. So what I did get in, which was going to be probably Thursday or Friday's project, is the new Samsung portable SSD. This is the T7 Shield, and we'll note that it is called a T7, and that is likely because it is a T7 in a different case. So I am not anticipating a huge performance increase here, but we will see. We'll put it to the test and see what we end up with. So we're going to be taking a look at it once we get a few more people into the chat room here. I'm going to put my computer on Do Not Disturb. There we go. And see how this thing does. And we're going to test it out on my MacBook Pro here. We're also going to run another test on my PC that I have to see how it performs versus the older version. You will note that it supports Windows, Mac, and Android, although I suspect it will work with the iPad, at least the ones with a USB Type-C port on board. And we're going to have a full review of this, which will be much shorter than this stream, coming up soon on my main channel, or on the channel you're watching. So be on the lookout for that. I want to say hello to some folks. We have Richard here, William is here, David is here, and you're shopping, so we'll catch you later. Okay, come back anytime. Nunya Business is here. That's a good one. And Michael Russo is here so far. And you can also say hello, and we'll add you to the thing. And we're going to unbox this in a minute and see what it's all about. So this is available in two capacities. And if you go on the Amazon link, you can find both of them. So there is a 1 terabyte and a 2 terabyte, but no 512 gig anymore. They used to offer a 512. It also does not appear that they are selling this with the fingerprint reader anymore. But it is IP65 rated, so that is an improvement over the other one, which they say is water and dust resistant. But you got to make sure it's not plugged in when you put that to the test. So I'm just going to make my Google Doc cheat sheet here. Samsung T7 Shield. And I'm not expecting performance any different or better than the other T7. So if you are in the market, maybe I'll add the other one to the list here. The other ones are on sale. No, they cost about the same. So the one with the the one with the fingerprint reader is currently like $5 more than this one for the same capacity. And like I said, I think we're going to see very similar performance. And that's the T7 Touch. And then they got the T5, which is a slightly slower version. Actually, a little slower than that. So the T7 is still available with the touch sensor for the same money. And I would actually suggest, if you have an iPad, that you look at that one. And the reason why I suggest that, let me make sure I have this listed on the right listings here. The reason why I suggest that is because with the iPad, you can encrypt it without having to have any software installed, which is why they say this one only works with Android. Because you can't encrypt it on the iPad because you can't run the software, but on the iPad with the fingerprint reader, you can hit the button and it works. Remix is here. Mix and Mel is here. Welcome, everybody. I'm just getting set up here. Give me 1 second to get everything situated. And we'll begin very shortly with some openings of boxes and some testings. Yeah, a couple people wrote to me about this and said you should get one. So I did. I bought one for you. 3-year warranty. It's a little more rugged. I mean, the other ones are pretty rugged, but this one apparently is more rugged because it is IP65 rated, which I do not believe the other one was. Let me see. Yeah, I don't think it was. So there's something. Okay, so we're going to get this show on the road here. And we'll take a look at this thing in a second. But yeah, this is the T7 Shield, which is brand new. Just came out. So it is a brand new product from Samsung. And bear with me here, folks. We'll get started in a minute or two. Okay, I am ready. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's take it out of the box, and then we'll plug it in and see what happens. Manish is here. Yeah, I ordered it yesterday morning when I got a tweet from somebody, and I was like, oh, I'll get it. So that's how fast it came in, because it was just announced yesterday. So this is not, like, I bought this like any other normal human would. Apparently they're available. So we'll see what happens. Winky wants to know, are there any cases for this? I don't think so yet, but I'm sure there will be. But I think this one is more rugged, and I think it kind of feels like a case in of itself. And Greg M makes a great point, and I always remind people, in fact, my class, like, they all come in with external hard drives, and I'm like, do you have a backup of that project that you're working on? Because I don't want you to lose all of your work. Yeah, I don't typically encrypt mine, but I'm not doing anything that's all that mission critical in my life. I have a kind of a boring life. Okay, so there was a question about the case, about a case being available for it. This is actually probably the same size. So the old ones were like these metal things. I can go get my other one. This one feels the same, although it's got the ridges here. But this is like a rubberized case that's around it. So this is not, it doesn't feel, it's not, it is metal underneath, I believe. But this rubber thing is glued on. So that's the big difference here. So it looks like you can take it off, but you can't. So this is kind of like a silicon case, and it's glued on. And you can see that it's got these ridges to it. I'll go get the other one so you can see the difference. But it feels about the same size, but it's a little thicker because of that rubber case. So the other one, so here is my T7 with the touch. Like I said, I really thought this was a nice idea because you could use this with anything. Like it doesn't need the software if you have the fingerprint reader. But there is a risk, of course, that if the hardware fails on the drive for the fingerprint reader, you lose it all. But you can see that it is a little thicker because it's got that rubber case around it. So it's definitely a little bulkier. But it's not slippery. So this one is all just metal. And this one is nice and rubbery. So there you go. Tucker is here. Sorry, Norman Tucker. And Greg M says it can survive a drop test from 8 feet or so. Yeah, and you know what? Most of these really can because they're all solid state. You know, like, granted, you might dent up the case a little bit if it hits too hard. This one won't dent because it's got that, you wouldn't see the dent because it's got the rubber case around it. But yeah, it looks like aluminum. I thought that was the case also, but it is rubber. So that's a big difference there. Recipe Bob is here. BCC Mac 14, ordered it yesterday when I saw a message from my friend about it. And coincidentally, contemplating on a second regular T7. Yeah, I think it is going to be the same performance. We'll find out for sure in a few minutes. If not the same, it'll be marginally better. Because it is USB-C, not Thunderbolt. So there you go. Recipe Bob says it's afternoon. Yeah, it kind of caught up with me too. I took a little mini weekend vacation, and I am so out of it because I have like a schedule. You know, like I've got the wrap up on Monday. I start working on the thing that I'm doing next for Tuesday. I got the teaching schedule, and it's all out of whack. So yeah, so you're not going to see anything from me until like Thursday, unfortunately, this week. So watch the ham radio video. Manual here. There's like 2 pages for every language. So there's a lot it looks like there's more of a document here than not. I am curious. All right, performance may vary, yada, 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 which we'll talk about. Windows, Mac OS, or Android. You might need to reformat it, especially on Android if it's formatted exFAT. Impact shock. Shock greater than 1,500 Gs or a drop of more than 2 or 3 meter. Okay, so this one you can drop it from an extra meter. So there's a little more drop protection versus the other one. But I don't know if this supports the encryption or not. We'll have to find out when we plug it in if there's software on board. But I suspect this is more of a case change than anything else. But we'll find out. Okay, so cables. The good news is that you get these cables. So I believe, let me take a look at the, yeah, so this is both of these are USB-C or USB 3.2 Gen 2. So both of these will support 10 gigabits per second. I can see the extra pins on the USB-A connector here. So that's good. And it's nice you get 2 cables versus the out-of-spec adapter that a lot of brands decide to ship with instead. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to plug it in. How about we plug it in, everybody? What do you say? And we'll see what we get. All right, so let me switch over to the Mac here. It's my MacBook Pro. And I've been using the MacBook Pro now as my daily driver because my wife took my MacBook Air. So her MacBook Pro broke, and I was going to buy her a new computer for the holidays. Take your pick of holiday. But what happened was I was waiting for the new M2 MacBook Air, which was rumored to come out before I bought one. And what do you know, it never came out. So I gave her an IOU, and then when her computer died, she's like, guess what? I'm taking your other one. And that was it. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mirror my screen. At least that's what I plan on doing here. Go back to display preferences. So we're going to just do a mirror. All right, there we go. And that way I can record some B-roll of our thing here. All right, so let me minimize our web browser screen here. And I'm going to plug this in. And what I'm first going to look for is what format the drive is in. Ow, I just pulled a muscle. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Ugh, I'm getting old. I can't even plug something in without hurting myself. Okay, so now we've got the T7 Shield here. And it looks like it's got the software that the other ones have. And there's never any kind of performance hit on these encryption things. But maybe we'll play around with it on the Windows side just to see what it does. Okay. I don't like installing all this software on my Mac. I like to just use these drives without the encryption because, you know, it just doesn't make sense, in my opinion, unless you've got something super important to do. Okay, so format-wise, let's go and look at the drive here. So I'm curious to see if it is formatted with exFAT, which is highly likely. It is exFAT. So here, I'll zoom in so you can see the format here. And why that is important is because if you plug it into, depending on the Android phone that you plug it into, you might need to reformat it. So for example, if I were to plug this into my Pixel phone, it would ask to reformat. All right, I'm just going to label a clip that I just recorded. Okay, all right, so now we are going to run the Blackmagic disk speed test, and then we'll do the other one after that. Okay, So we got that kind of lined up. I'm going to select the target drive, T7 Shield. Yeah, they call this the Shield, not for its performance, but for its casing, because it is designed to protect you from the elements. All right, so let's fire up the test, and leave your questions down in the question box there, and I will answer them. So let's start this up and see how we do. All right, so we're running the test. You know, I'm getting less than I expected to get out of this, to be honest. And this is where we got to start tweaking everything, because sometimes things just get wacky. Because they were advertising on this, and we'll see what we get when we plug it into the PC. But I found on the Mac, things tend to get a little wacky, depending on format, depending on which port you plug it into. So I'll try the other port and see if that results in any difference in performance here. But we're getting, you know, consistent read and writes here, but not what I was expecting. I was expecting closer to a gigabyte, which we might see on the PC side. And I'm not seeing it kind of slow down at all, which is good. And granted, 750 megabytes per second is nothing to sneeze at, but I think we should be seeing, you know, closer to like gigabyte, 800, 900 megabytes per second. So we're about 200 megabytes per second behind what I would expect it to be doing. So I'm going to stop this, and we're going to run a disk utility here real quick. I'll see if there's any comments on that. I am not a fan of the 11-inch stream. It did not perform very well. You can see my review of it. William's wondering if you put it into an iPhone. So the iPhone can read exFAT. I think they're paying Microsoft for the license. But you need the USB adapter for that. Yeah, so if you encrypt it and you plug it into an NVIDIA Shield, you will need the software to decrypt it. And that's why I like the one with the fingerprint reader better. And you know what? I'm going to add that one to my product carousel, because I'm guessing that one's going to get discontinued. And I would say if you are out shopping right now and want encryption without a lot of headache, I think the T7 Touch is the one to look at. And I have that one right here. I reviewed it. I did a pretty extensive review on it. And what I liked most about the T7 Touch, which I will highlight in the thing here, is that the fingerprint reader works when you're plugged into an iPad or anything else that doesn't support stuff. So if you were using an Android TV box and you wanted encryption, it's a lot easier to touch your finger on this than it is to go through the rigmarole of software. And I think it'll hold itself open until you unplug it or eject it. So it would just be one touch and you're in. So that would be my take based on what we've seen already with that. I actually doubt they're going to make a Shield with the touch. T7 Touch is what I'm referring to. So if you go click on my Amazon link in the carousel below, you will see the T7 Touch. It is $5 more than the Shield is at the moment, but I think the performance is not going to be all that different between the two. And this is what it looks like. It's you can drop it too, just a meter lower. So this is rated for a 2-meter drop, and I just slammed it against the desk by accident. But this one can handle a bigger drop and is water resistant. This is not. But if you're not going anywhere where you're going to be at risk of dropping it in water, you know. But yeah, so if you click on the Amazon link, you will see it right below. And that helps the channel too, by the way. But I'm not pushing you towards one thing or the other. But I don't think you're going to see a huge performance gap here. No Linus drop tips. Well, you know, somebody's got to test it. All right, so let's go and format this drive. And I'm going to format this for the Mac extended file system here to see if that might result in anything different. But before I do, because the encryption software is on here, So I'm just going to copy the Windows package over to my NAS so we can test the encryption on the other machine. And let me just do that real quick. Network. So bear with me here, folks. Oh, great. Hang on a second. Why isn't my NAS showing up here on my network stuff? I'm just going to copy it to the desktop for now. We'll deal with that later. Okay, so we'll copy that over. And let's format this sucker. So we're going to go to, and Tails Orange is joining us from Singapore. Excellent. Yeah, these are kind of expensive. I think for a terabyte solid state from a name brand with a 3-year warranty, you pay for the performance and the solid state, or you could get more storage on a more fragile drive. It's up to you. But that's typically how this stuff works. So we're going to format this to a Mac file system. And let's see if we get a little better performance out of it that way. And what I'm going to keep it in the same slot and see what happens. Okay, so we're plugged in here. And let's select it again. And let's see how it does this time. Yeah, we're still getting about the same performance here. But I found, these Macs can be really, especially the M1s, like the Thunderbolt performance is fine, but like the USB, and this is true of Windows too, even though you're plugged into a Thunderbolt port, there's a USB interface somewhere along the bus that you're going to connect with. And all of these drives interact differently with it. And I think we've seen this on a few other occasions also. Plug it into a different port and see what we get. And sometimes it's even the cable. I'm going to try a Thunderbolt cable and see if that actually makes any difference, because you'd be surprised. All right, so here we are, a different port. It's doing a little better, but about the same. Yeah, no difference. Okay, so let's rule out, and I go through this every time. This is not just Samsung, it's everything. So I'm going to go find a Thunderbolt 3 cable. Now, the neat thing about Thunderbolt cables, you may not be aware of, is that they are probably the best USB-C cable you can buy. And the reason is that they support everything that USB and Thunderbolt can support. That includes power, it includes display alt mode, the whole Monty. And the cables, when they have the Thunderbolt on them, are certified. So it's not like some industry honor system thing. It is like, this cable will do all of these things to spec or else. So they're expensive cables, unless you get them with your drive, in which point it's part of the cost of admission. But I'm just curious if this Thunderbolt cable might perform better than the USB cable we just used. You would be very, like, I've seen it all now. I'm jaded. I've been reviewing tech for too long. I'm going to reboot the Mac also in a minute just to see if that makes a difference. All right, so let's do the test again. Yep, about the same. Take a look. All right. Yeah, no difference there. It just could be how it talks to the Mac. All right, one last thing we're going to try is I'm going to move it to this other port on the other side. So let me eject it, and I'll plug in the power to the other side here, and then we'll do a reboot. I'm just trying everything to make sure I'm not crazy. And what we're looking for here is throughput. Now, also of note is that I believe, that's why I'm going to plug it into a Windows computer in a minute. I'm pretty sure the Blackmagic disk speed test is still an Intel application, so that could have a factor as well. So before we, like I don't want to pass judgment. Oh, it is out. It's M1. Nope, never mind. It's been updated. So that's native M1. So not an Intel app. So let's rule that out. So now what I've done is I've plugged it into the port on the right-hand side, because sometimes on these computers, the Thunderbolt port is sharing the bus with something else, especially the USB controller inside the computer. So you got to account for that. So sometimes there's some ports that are better than others, because it might be, the video output might be sharing bandwidth, yada, yada. Yep, no difference. A little bit better? Yeah, about the same. So all 3 ports, same performance. So we're going to do a reboot and see on a fresh boot if we get the same thing, but we're not getting close to that advertised gigabyte per second yet here on the Mac. And this is the Mac, right? Like the Mac Daddy Mac, the MacBook Pro with the M1 Max, whatever the most expensive M1 is that I didn't need, I put in this one. Because I buy a new Mac like this like once every 7 or 8 years, so I said, this is my 7-year computer, so I decked it out. Got a terabyte of storage on board. I've got 32 gigs of RAM, and I've got the M1 Max. All right, let me log in. You have to use your password on the reboot. And what I will also do, just to rule it out, is I will unplug the display adapter and make sure that that's not a factor. Okay, so let's go back to, and by the way, right now we are looking at I have the other drive selected here. Let's go back to the T7 Shield here. Okay, so we're back in business here. And let's load up the Blackmagic disk speed test one more time. And we'll select our target drive again, just to rule it out. I want to make sure we're getting all of our I's and T's and, oh, see, now it's a little bit better. The reboot helped, but not by much, because it's right back where it was. Yeah, there you go. So about 800 megabytes per second. Again, no, not bad, but not the gigabyte that they were touting. Now what you'll see when we plug it into the PC in a second here is perhaps something a little different. So let's get this clip labeled here. 101 Mac disk speed test. All right, so we got that kind of figured out. So we're going to bring the PC into the mix. But let me disable the output video here and just see if that makes any difference. All right, so it was like 750, 700 was what we had before. So now without any other I/O going, this is power here. So all the ports are clear. Let's try it again. Yeah, same speed. With a Thunderbolt cable, no less. So we're like ruling out everything. The cable, the reboot, the video output, all the ports, same performance on each. And I try to anticipate like what, and it's not a criticism of the viewership because people really want to be helpful, but I'll hear from viewers like, hey, did you try this? Did you try that? So I like to try all those things that I could think of and try to figure that out. And Tails Orange makes a good point. I like to, we discuss this whenever we're looking at one of these because this is a frequent suggestion, which is that you could build your own. You can get an enclosure. In fact, I have a Samsung PCI Express 3 drive in an enclosure that supports Thunderbolt and USB. And a lot of times you can put something together for less than or around the same price as this. And in my case, I got a Thunderbolt drive out of the mix. And what's really cool with that Thunderbolt drive that I built myself essentially with the enclosure and the drive is that when I transfer video data from my production computer to my Mac over the network, I got a 10 gig Ethernet connection between the two. And I can move those files over my network at over a gigabyte per second. It's crazy just to watch it go zoop, 20 gigabytes, like zip. It goes super quick. But yeah, so we'll have to see what we get here. And Tails Orange has got lots of good thoughts here today. it's a bit like Russian roulette in the context of software compatibility. Yeah, it is. There's a lot to this. I mean, to some degree, like your Mac is kind of an appliance, right? It is untouchable when it comes to getting things to work properly. And if the developers are not playing ball with Apple's APIs and everything, it can often lend itself to things not performing the way they should. That's definite. All right, so now what we're going to do is I've got this machine that is on loan from Lenovo. This is one of their workstation devices, and this is what we're going to do our we run the more comprehensive test in Windows, because that's what I've been running it on forever. And there really isn't a Mac test that can do this as well. And what I want to look at here is all of these specifics as to how it performs. So we're going to boot this monster up. You will not find, well, you probably will if you spend more money, but you will not find a more powerful example of a laptop than something like this. This is the P15 Gen 2, and I still have this. I reviewed it a little while ago, and I just haven't gotten to this yet, but Lenovo sent over some like augmented reality industrial thing to try with this, and I just haven't gotten around to covering it yet, but we will do that at some point. So yeah, this thing both, there's a lot of expensive laptops on the desk here. Let me log in if it still recognizes me. I haven't gone into this thing in a while. So we're going to run the Crystal disk speed test on this one and see where it goes. So the issue, David T is wondering, we're not seeing on the Mac at least, we're not seeing anywhere near the advertised 1 gigabyte per second that they were touting with it, at least on the Mac. So now we're gonna plug her in to the PC, and we're going to see if the PC fares a little better. I'm going to pop this into one of its Thunderbolt ports here in the back. And what I'm also going to do is get my video hooked up to it so you can see what I'm doing too. And I might just run the Blackmagic speed test on here too. And the Blackmagic test is not a be-all and end-all, but rather yeah, somebody was talking about the cable popping out. But rather it is it's something that really, I think, very fairly tests the ability of the drive to do sequential reads and writes. And for a lot of people, that's a big deal, because how fast is it going to write the backup that I'm copying to it? Or if I'm out in the field as a photographer or a videographer, you know, what is it doing for me, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at there. Yeah, let me see if I have that on here. If not, we'll download it. We do not. Let me see what's in here. Give me 1 second here, folks. I just have to validate myself, like I need any validation. And yeah, and I'm aware of this, David, but this is, we've seen gigabyte performance on other drives. So we're ruling out, you know, if I'm going to say that it doesn't meet the manufacturer's specs, we're going to look into everything. So we tried different ports. We did a reboot. We tried different cables, including a Thunderbolt cable. So we are trying to eliminate all of the reasons why we could be seeing a poor performing drive there. Shrinking Sharon is here. Hello there. Nice of you to stop by. Do I think Linux machines are going to reap the benefits of such advancements? I would say they will, depending on drivers, right? So if you support a USB 3.2 Gen 2 drive, it will certainly do that. Let me see if I can find, I don't think it's in the Windows Store. So the Blackmagic Disk Speed Test is available on the Mac App Store, but not on the Windows App Store. But I think I do have a copy of it saved on my NAS drive. So I'm going to connect to that real quick and just drag it over. So I think the one I have is fairly up to date. I usually copy a version of it. Yeah, this one's from 2020. It's close enough. So let's just see if it performs the same way. And we'll give it a shot and see what happens here. And if you're watching on the Amazon feed, feel free to ask a question in the chat section down below. And if you want to take a look at this thing, oops, see the cable. I'm not using the stock cable because it doesn't reach around it. So I've got the, I have a Thunderbolt cable that I'm plugging into it right now, but I wanted to get it in view of my overhead camera so that those of you tuning in late can see it. This is very much the same kind of size as the T7 regular one, but it's a little thicker because it's got this rubber case that kind of wraps around it. And I will say the connector feels a little weak, especially with my Thunderbolt cable. So the USB cable sticks in a little better, but it does pop out pretty easily. And I think on this one, yeah, the connection's a little bit firmer. I'm going to make a note of that. The connector is not as firm as I would like it to be. So I've already popped this cable out twice. This is a Thunderbolt 4 cable, but this one isn't holding on much stronger. So that's going to be another note that I'm going to put into my document here. All right. Oh, it's already there. Okay, so we'll just forget that. It's been there the whole time. Okay. So let me get my brain rebooted here. And we'll keep going. Okay. Now we're ready. Now, yeah, so if you're wondering, this is like rubber on the top. So it's all rubber, and it's picking up like dust and stuff too. Okay, so now let's go over to the disk speed test. It's not a bad drive. I'm not trying to bash it, but I just want to figure out why it might not be working as advertised. Okay, so now we're on the PC, and I need to format this drive because, remember, we formatted it for Mac as one of our troubleshooting endeavors there. So I'm going to go to Disk Management, and we're just going to, man, this computer is, granted we're not doing anything crazy, but this thing is fast. So we're going to delete the volume and reformat that sucker. And see what we get. Okay, so that's unallocated, new simple volume, and we'll just make this NTFS. All right. Okay, there we go. And we'll select the target drive. Oops. I suspect it's going to work much faster on the Windows side. All right, here we go. Yep, as expected. So it's the Mac that just, it's the Mac. This is what I'm expecting to get out of it. Not quite a gigabyte, but in the ballpark. And there you go. So it's the M1, the USB, the Thunderbolt. And that's what's been so weird about these things is that, you know, you think, oh, I got a Thunderbolt port, it's going to be fast no matter what. It's not the case with USB. You know, when you plug a Thunderbolt drive in, you know, you've got like, essentially you're plugging into the PCI Express bus. This has a USB controller that it has to go through. And so depending on the performance of that controller, and it looks like in the Mac, for whatever reason, this drive doesn't seem to like it as much. So you got a 200 megabyte per second penalty here. We're going to let this run for a little bit longer here. Let's see where it goes. Hey, Trent Curtis is here. So Trent is the guy that hooked me up with a good suggestion for my ham radio course that I'm taking. Haven't had time to like really just, I need to like, nobody, like no kids, I need to like just buckle down and get it done. So I have to get it done before July when they change all the questions on the test. But I'm determined to get there. All right, so one of the stories to be told will be the fact that we see a little bit of a performance difference on the Mac versus Windows 2. And that's on the M1 Mac. I bet you on the Intel Mac it might be a little different. So, yep. All right, let's go and just make the note of this. Windows Blackmagic. And I bet you that this drive would probably have the same problems. Okay, so we are good on that. So now we are going to run the crystal disk mark test. And I just run kind of at the default here, which is what we usually do. Just give a real apples to apples kind of comparison here. So we're going to select the right drive on D. Yep, we're there. Okay. And this will take a minute or two to run, so we'll let that kind of go through. And we did do this as well, David. We did that before we plugged in the Thunderbolt cable. So we took the standard cable that it came with and plugged that in, and it didn't work any better. Yep, I am going for the ham ticket. Gonna do it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really, the data modes are really what interests me a lot about the ham radio world. Lewis wants to know how much this laptop costs. This one costs a lot, and this is not mine. They didn't give it to me. I'm looking at this AR thing. We reviewed this a while back. This one I think is probably in the $5,000 range, but they'll be getting it back soon. I just want to get. They have this AR thing that they wanted me to check out, so I just have to have some time to get around to that, and we'll get there. And one of the things that I run this test for is that this test looks at the random read and write performance, which, to be honest, is probably more important than its sequential read and write performance. Because you really want to get a feel for if you were to have an operating system running off of it, or a game, or some kind of software, right? So there you go. And Jolt Dude says packet is, yes, it is, very much so. In fact, I may have to go find an old TNC, a terminal node connector, to get to get my packet radio BBS going. But you know, like, for some reason, I run a BBS off my Apple II for a little while, and I had another one running on an old Windows PC. But the whole notion of a BBS was the locality of it. And you kind of lose that with Telnet, because you know, it became this thing when we were doing the BBSs. Oh, shoot. I got to start that over again. Is it seriously trying to update? No. All right. Yeah, it's seriously like running updates in the middle of this. Great. All right, we're going to stop this. Sorry, everybody. See what happens? It throws off everything when it's like updating. And I think it must have done a display driver update or something in the background. I'm going to go set the power settings here to not turn the display to sleep. All right, on battery power when plugged in. Yeah, so the screen was supposed to stay on for 2 hours. So clearly it's doing some kind of update in the background. So we're going to let that hopefully finish. Let's try this again. So I don't think it was a video glitch. So let's get everything plugged in here. Start that again. Frank Cromer is joining us on the Amazon chat. Hello there. So we'll let this kind of run itself out. Mark Smith is having some hotspot problems. And Jolt Dude's looking at NASA's. You know, I would say if you can build a PC, you know, some of these open source solutions might be worth looking at, and might cost less if you have the PC already. But yeah, the NASA's are expensive, especially the ones with Intel on board. And yeah, one of the things I am looking for is an APRS radio. I may buy a couple of them if I'm going to do this BBS. I want to run the BBS off of a Raspberry Pi. And I'm just curious as to how it all works, because it's not like a dial-up connection where you have a dedicated connection all the time. So when you use a packet radio BBS, you are transmitting a request, and then you are receiving back data. And one of the things that you'll learn when you study for a ham license, as I am right now, is that they do not allow amateur radio operators to encrypt their data. So, oh, just dropped the video again. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to unplug. I think this might be a little, yeah, let's stop this for a second. my NDI video thing is causing that display glitch. So I want to get rid of that. I don't really need that because I'm going to take a screenshot of this, but we're going to stop this again and start it one more time. That wasn't a display driver update. It was a communication error on the HDMI port with my capture device. So let's try this one last time because I'm just going to grab a screenshot of this and also just put the data into something. And then we'll get the iPad out and see how it does there. All right, now, geez. Now it's trying to update me on stuff. Let's just let this test run, and then we'll do all the updates that it wants me to do. Tails Orange is going to revive their old compact Presario from 2016. Yeah, that could be a good utility machine to have around. Mark Smith is saying, yeah, typically what I do, and we let it run for a little bit. I usually let that Blackmagic disk speed test run for a little bit. Because you'll notice that happening when you let that test run. This one, not so much because you can't let it run for, I guess you can set it to cycle over and over again, but the Blackmagic test is more visible. And I reviewed a drive from CalDigit that would start off great, and then it would just drop off. And so I reviewed that, put it out there, and they were not happy with me. So they have not talked to me since. And this is an example of how a lot of these companies work. When you give them a bad review, suddenly they were telling me how wrong I was and how all these other drives are, basically designing themselves for the benchmark. But you see that drop off in performance. I saw it with the Thunderbolt drive from Samsung. It drops off. That drive runs super hot. So, they weren't happy. And guess what? They came out with a revision 2 all of a sudden. So there you go. But CalDigit, yeah, I was not happy with them because of how they reacted. I mean, their product performed, and they didn't deny that it performs like this. They just said that everyone else was cheating, but I don't think that's the case. So Jolt Dude, yeah, I wonder though if it's less expensive now because so much can be done in software. Because that's what's been amazing to me about just using that software-defined radio thing is that I'm able to get so much decoded that would normally require hardware. Now, I can tell you what your problem is here, Win32. Well, it could be a couple things. But what I noticed with that drive in particular, I think it was that one, and I think you can find my review of it. The terabyte version performs better than the 500 gig version does, and it's how they configured it. So it's not like a RAID 0, but it's kind of in that vein in that it's got 2 chips to write to, so it can stripe across. And so the terabyte version runs faster than the 500 gig one does. I did a review on that. I think it was like the 500 versus the, let me look that up. It was the T5. And see what they have here. No, I take that back. The 250 versus the 500, never mind. But it could be anything too. It could just be your USB connection, try a different port, so all the stuff we just tried earlier. Sammy Chapman is, have I ever reviewed docking stations? Oh boy, have I ever. I've reviewed a lot of docking stations. USB docking stations, Thunderbolt docking stations. I reviewed a lot of Thunderbolt ones. And you know what? A lot of them are the same because they're all made in the same place. So it's a matter of what ports you're looking for is really what it comes down to. And we're letting this run. It's got a nice little light on the back. I don't want to touch it because it's running its test, but it's got like a little blue light that blinks at you to let you know that it's operating. All right, we're getting there. CF542 says, every NAS I've owned has failed. They all do after a while, don't they? I've had good luck with the Synologies, although I had one that had that bad memory issue. So, you know, it lasted until it didn't, and then I had to replace it. But, you know, I got like 6 years out of it, I think. So, you know, there's something that runs 24/7. I don't know. I need to look. I have yet to upgrade to the new Synology 7. I'm still on 6 because I'm so terrified of like it messing up my workflow. All right, so I'm going to jump into my benchmark spreadsheet, and you can follow along if you want. Maybe I'll put this up on my screen here. Give me a second here, folks. I'm going to connect you to my spreadsheet so you can all follow along. If you go to Lon.TV/benchmarks, you can see this for yourself. So give me a second here. I'll get it set up for you so you can see what I'm doing. And Frank has been running QNAP for 7 years. Yeah, I would check those drives, make sure they're okay. And also make sure for any NAS, and I've talked about this before, just get it off the internet. Like keep it behind your firewall. Don't do any of that forwarding UPnP, whatever. Like just take it off. Because the QNAPs in particular are particularly vulnerable. All right, bear with me here, folks. I'm going to bring in my screen from my Mac so you can see what I am working on here. So what we're going to do is transpose and just give me a second to get it set up. We are going to transpose the data from this screen into my spreadsheet so you can see how it compares to some of the other ones. So I'm going to go off of this thing versus the other. All right, so we're going to go over to the new Crystal Disk Mark tab on my spreadsheet. I see somebody's popping in here. And yes, that's the old one. This is the new. So they kept changing the test. And I've basically locked it in at the current version that I'm on. But if we compare this to the T7, you're going to see it pretty much coming in exactly on par with that. T7 Shield SSD. USB-C Gen 2, just like the other one, 983.4. That's on the read. On the write, 979. I mean, pretty much right within the margin of error. 280.9, a little better on that one. 139.9, but in the margin of error on that one. 271.8. Yeah, I mean, it might be a little better on the random reads, maybe, but the writes are about the same. And we ran this one. I will run it on my desktop machine upstairs just to see if there's any variation here, but I think it's about on par. The one thing it did better at was this like single thread test, the 4K test. So it was a lot faster there, and you'll see that it is right in line actually. This is what's funny. Like this was this Seagate one that we reviewed a couple weeks ago, right on the money. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe these are running with the same flash underneath. But yeah, so I mean, there might be an area where it'll do a little better than the T7. And I think I did the T5 on one of these at some point. I'll have to pull it up. I mean, compared to its contemporaries, it is, so if you look at like the SanDisk Extreme, it's right in line with that. So, you know, it's fine. It works as advertised on the PC. On the Mac, a little bit different. But I think if you are in the mood to upgrade, you're not going to see a huge performance difference between this one versus that one. And I think the area where you're going to see the most utility is on this one, especially when you're plugging into things that it is not convenient to run the decryption software on. That's one thing you'll note right out of the gate, for sure. Let me take a few more questions here. Just going through all my questions. Some talk of OBS Studio. I use vMix. I have to upgrade to the new version. I haven't done that yet. And Joel2 says, once it's configured, isn't the T7? Yes. So it doesn't require the app afterward, but you need it to start it, right? So if you were to encrypt this drive and plug it into an iPad, there's no way to unlock it. But the fingerprint, so this one gave you the option of using the fingerprint reader or a password or both. And so when you had the fingerprint reader enabled, when you were plugged into the iPad, you just unlocked it with your fingerprint, and then it would just get you in. But on this one, you're going to need to get an app running first, and on the iPad, they don't allow you to run that. So you could use it on the iPad without encrypting it. In fact, we'll try that real quick. But you will need it. I have to format the drive again. You will need it for, so we're going to format it exFAT now. So let's just change the format here. So format, and we'll go to exFAT this time. All right. So if I had encrypted this, there's no way to get into it on the iPad, which is why they don't even advertise it as being compatible. But as you'll see in a minute, when I plug the iPad in, it's going to work just fine. And what I'll do to further prove my point is I will copy, what is this here? I'm going to grab a video file off of my NAS device so we have something to demo. Oops. And we'll do YouTube backups. Yeah, I'll just throw the IdeaPad video on there. Grab that and drag it over. Yeah, so in many ways, this is kind of a, this is a case change versus a real performance bump. So we've typically seen a larger performance increase between a T5, for example, and a T7 like this. But here, it's really the casing. So you pick up the waterproofing, you pick up the added drop performance, because I think that rubber casing is going to absorb more of the shock of a fall. So you get an extra meter of drop performance, and that's it. You lose the fingerprint reader if you went with the T5 Touch. And what I'm actually recommending to people is that if you're in the market for the T7 Shield, but you really want to use the encryption and you want the convenience of being able to unlock the encryption with the fingerprint, this is $5 more right now. And I think this issue of heat and throttling is going to be the same across the board. I did not notice that with the tests that I did on the Samsung. So we let that speed test run. I'll let it run again a little bit more before we do anything else. But it'll probably be in line with those. And if anything, it might get a little warmer than the prior edition because it's almost got a blanket around it, right? So I'm guessing they added these heat sinks here to kind of address the issue, because this one was just flat out metal. And Jolt points out that you can get a silicon sleeve for the other one if you wanted to go that route. I don't know about that, Vibhav, because I'm pretty sure, I would guess that if somebody was really determined, they probably could get into it pretty easily. I mean, if you were like the NSA or somebody, right? More than a mortal could do. And the cables are still short that come with this, for sure. All right, so let's eject the drive. and we'll plug it into my iPad, and you'll see how that works. Okay, so now let me go track down my iPad, and we'll let the 4 months of updates install on the on the computer here. So where do I put my iPad? I saw it this morning. So I moved it yesterday because I had to put some more things on my desk. So let me go find the iPad wherever it went. I suppose I could ping it, and it would surface itself. Yeah, but I would say if you want the fingerprint thing, you're not going to give up any performance for it. All right, let me do a ping of my iPad here. Got some new followers, by the way, John Stevens and Jad Jason. Thanks for the follow. And I'm just going to go track down my iPad real quick with Find My. And I'm pretty sure it's charged. All right, so my iPad. Here it is. Play sound. I know it's down here somewhere. Maybe the battery, oh, there it is, I see it. Maybe the battery is dead. We can plug it in and rectify that. Although we need the port free. Here it is. Yeah, I think it's dead. All right, we'll let it charge up for a minute. But yeah, I'm fairly certain this is going to work with the iPad when we boot it up. So let me grab a power cable. The good thing is at my house, a USB-C power connection is always close at hand. So we'll let the iPad charge up a little bit here and see what we get out of this real quick. Probably should have plugged it in before I did this. But yeah, it's not bad. I mean, I have no complaints about it. It just it does not perform on the M1 Max as well as it does on Windows. And I would venture to say that probably the Intel Max might fare better also. But now I've got to let this this iPad charge up. Let me go see if my other iPad upstairs is going. I'll let that charge up there. Samuel is here. Good evening. Some drives might self-destruct, and actually there was I watched some video on YouTube of like some guy who had he had one of those hardware wallets for crypto, and he had like I think close to $1 million worth of crypto on it, and he forgot the password. And if you got the password wrong too many times, it would self-destruct. So he hired this hardware hacker guy to figure out a way to get into it, and he did. It's pretty crazy. All right, we're just waiting for it to charge up here. Yeah, so I'll let this charge for like another 4 or 5 minutes, and we'll get it going there. But yeah, this is it. And like I said, I think the big thing that people will be surprised about is that it's all rubber. So it feels like it gets a little warmer, to be honest with you, because it's got this blanket around it, essentially. So yeah, we shall see. Well, give it a minute for everything to charge up here so I can get the drive plugged in long enough so that the battery does not go on it in the interim here. But the other one that I looked at was the Samsung X5, which is their Thunderbolt drive, and that thing is quick. But talk about thermal throttling, that thing slows down like super quick. But it probably has, it does have a greater degree of ruggedness to it, and I think they're doing this probably because the market is going in that direction. So that's, I'm guessing, is the reason. So it feels as rugged as some of the other ones we've looked at, namely, you know, the SanDisk one. As for me, I don't travel anywhere adventurous enough that this would be a necessity for me. But yeah, I am not certain as to how secure it is, other than the fact that, you know, I would not put it past a government level agency, 3-letter agency of some kind, from figuring out a way to circumvent that. Although, I'm pretty sure the encryption, I guess it's a matter of what the encryption does. Does it encrypt the NVMe drive itself, or just the interface to it? If that's the case, then you're right. It's probably, because there is really no performance penalty for using it at all. All right, we will check on our charge status here. We're at 6%. We might be able to squeeze it. Let's see. So here's my iPad. I'm going to zoom my camera out a bit. And we'll get our cable out here. I'll use the stock cable. You can use the, I mentioned this earlier, the best USB-C cable you can get is a Thunderbolt cable, believe it or not, because it works with everything. All right, so let me get into my iPad here real quick. And we'll just use the Apple Files app, because that will have, you know, it's funny, I go through these phases where I use my iPad all the time and then I stop. So I just finished a cycle of that. All right. Oh, there it goes. It's telling me to find my iPad. Okay, so I just got a notification that Plex is now streaming Hallmark movies. And that's like my wife's favorite thing, so I'm going to show her that today. Okay, so let me put this down here. We'll just get the iPad in position. And let me plug this in. Yeah, so the cable connection is feeling a little wobbly. And let's see how much time. So at 8%, I should have enough just to be able to do this demo. Mark Smith wants to know the price difference between the two. Yeah. Thunderbolt cables are very expensive. So if money's no object, then the Thunderbolt cable, yeah, there's definitely a limitation to this recommendation. It's one of those things where if you just want certainty, that's how you get it. All right, so let's plug this in. And I'm going to record this real quick. And we should see the drive pop up right there. There we go. And it's playing the video off of the drive here. And you can see the little light blinking. So it does work with the iPad, even though they say it doesn't. And I think the reason why they say it doesn't is because you can't use the encryption software with this. I would be curious, though, like how many people actually use that feature. Okay. Well, that's everything I wanted to check out. All right. Well, everybody, I think I've got enough to get the rest of my analysis done. So I'm going to skedaddle and get some things arranged. And if you're curious, if you tuned in yesterday, we got one of these radon detectors in, and it's been 24 hours. So let's check the status. So this is the AirThings Wave that I will be reviewing a week from now when it's finally done calibrating itself. I was hoping to work on it today, but you know how it goes. So let's take a look at my current radon level. We're going to update the thing here. So it's downloading, all right. And if we jump back, my radon level is 2.2 right now. And the test that I had run with a lab-based test came in at 3, but it was raining. And the guy was telling me when it's raining outside, you actually have a higher radon level inside than when it's nicer out. So, it kind of takes a little bit of time for it to reach its height, and then it kind of levels out. But it'll be interesting to map this chart long-term against the weather. So I'm going to let this run for a week. I've got it set up in the same spot I had the lab-based test hooked up to. But right now, the current reading is 2.2, which is below the EPA recommended level in which you need to act on it. I do have an active radon mitigation system installed in my home, so that number would be worse than what it is right now if I didn't have that. But that's what we've got so far. But I need to wait at least another 5 days before I can review this thing because it takes that long for it to get itself calibrated. And it is a little warm in here. I have one of those split systems, and that sucker can heat this room up super efficiently. But the humidity number's right, so it looks like most of its settings here are pretty accurate, at least versus what I know them to be. So that is the radon detector. That's going to be a fun video because we're going to do a little bit, I'm going to do a little more research on radon because I was surprised when I streamed that yesterday how many people were not aware of radon and the danger that it entails for your health. So it's kind of an important thing to check. And I'll have some recommendations about it. I would get a lab kit first and then get this to monitor after that. I would not go the other way around. Because you want to go with something that you know works. And this I think is working. The number looks about what that kit did for me. So I had had the kit running for like 2 or 3 days, and I got a level of 3 back. So I'm right at the cusp of where you would do something. But the guy said, get the air thing. This is the radon guy. He said, get the air things thing and let it run for a couple days and see what you get. So that's what we're doing. All right. Well, everybody, I am going to finish up a few things here. And yeah, we'll definitely have a review of it. The reason why I'm, again, not doing it yet is that I need to wait. I just think it just would be bad to review a product when I haven't spent the recommended time for it to calibrate. So it's going to take 5 more days for this to finish its analysis. And so once it's done with that, technically, the radon, they say you'll have a good read after 48 hours. So, I might be able to do something with it tomorrow. But it just, I don't know, I just feel like if it wants you to wait 7 days, let's do that, and we'll do that. Tail says, am I in the desert? No, I just have I'm in Connecticut, but I have a split air system that it just is, it is immensely efficient, and it's very good at warming up this room. I have it set to like 65 and it's like 72 in here. It's not even running right now. The heat just sticks around in this room. And it's pretty, the temperature down here, it's a basement, typically is about 60-ish. So that's what you end up with. All right, everybody. I am going to depart now and finish up my work on this drive, try to get something done today. But I thank you all for tuning in. Let me just make sure I didn't miss any questions on the Amazon chat here. Let's go back to our stream here and make sure that's the case. Frank Crumber was wondering, do you have to be within Bluetooth? Yes. On the Air Things, yes, you do. So, but, here's always a but. So the Air Things device, it's over there. I'll show it to you when we do the review. The sensor only works over Bluetooth, and that's like $200. And then they offer a hub for $80 that will go to your Wi-Fi and then talk to the, it's one of those typical IoT things. So if you don't buy the hub, your phone has to be near it. So you cannot get like real-time data from it unless you're next to it. So that is the unfortunate thing there. But overall, it performs as I expected it to perform. It looks like it's metal, but it's not, although I think underneath the rubber it is, but you can't take the rubber off. And they definitely did change the case design, I'm guessing, to kind of add a little heat sink to it, knowing that this rubber thing is going to warm it up a bit more. It definitely feels warmer than the non-rubberized T7. So yeah, if you want the encryption, go with this one. All right, but I'll be back. Don't you worry. And if I play my cards right, I may even have this video up this evening. So stay tuned. We will have a lot more to come, and I thank you all for tuning in with me and watching what I do. All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.